Today's vocabulary lesson will have 225 words. Make sure you watch until the end to really expand your advanced vocabulary and learn more. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and like. It's really important for the promotion and growth of the channel. And it's also really nice to know that my work is useful. Abundant. Abundant. Abundant means plenty or more than enough. Often, when people have a garden, if they have a lot of tomatoes one year, they have an abundant amount of tomatoes, or you could also say they have an abundance. Using it as a noun, this year, I had an abundant amount of snap peas, and my family just loved them. Amicable. Amicable. If you are on amicable terms with someone, it means you are friendly with them and there is no conflict. A very common way this advanced word is used is when two people break up or get divorced, but they are still friends and don't fight. We say it was an amicable divorce. It means they both friendly agreed not to be married anymore. If someone asks you if you're fighting with someone, and you're not fighting with them, you don't hold any ill will towards them for any reason. You could say you are on amicable terms with them. Ample. Ample. Ample also means more than enough or plenty. The most common way the word ample is used is when we talk about time. If you have more time than you need to complete something, you could say, "We have ample time to finish this text." Or if someone doesn't get their work done, and you're questioning if they used their time well, you could say, "You had ample time to finish this, why isn't it completed?" If you want to share something with someone because you have a lot of it, you could say, "We have an ample amount of tomatoes from our garden. Would you like some?" It means we have more than enough. Anomaly. Anomaly? When something is described as an anomaly, it means it is completely unexpected, unusual, and surprising. In July where I live, it's very hot, and it might be an anomaly if we have a very cold day one day, or in some places where it doesn't snow. If they get snow one time in a year, that's a complete anomaly. It's something very strange and unexpected. Apprehensive. Apprehensive. If you are apprehensive about something, it means you are very nervous and worried about it. Often, if you have an exam coming up, you will feel apprehensive about it. You'll be anticipating it. You'll be very nervous. You are apprehensive. Apprehensive can also be used in a positive way, meaning you're nervous but also excited. Many people feel apprehensive before their wedding day. They're excited but also a bit nervous and have some slight anxiety. Astute. Astute. If you describe someone or something as very astute, it means it's very clever and observant. A very common way this advanced word is used is when someone makes an observation, and we think it's very accurate, and we think they're very observant. We might say that's an astute observation. We can also compliment a person by calling them very astute. It means very clever and observant. Boisterous. Boisterous. This is a very fun advanced word to pronounce. It's also used very often. Usually, if we describe someone as boisterous, we're saying they are quite loud and disruptive. The words loud and boisterous usually go together. Some people have a boisterous personality, and it might be somewhat of a positive trait, but usually, we use this advanced word negatively. Concur. Concur. If you concur with someone, you agree with them. Concur means to agree. If you do not concur, it means you disagree. If you want to use this word, it's typically used more formally. You could say, "I concur with your opinion on this matter." Contentious. Contentious. If something or someone is contentious, it is likely to cause an argument and disagreement. You can also describe people as contentious. Many people feel that politicians, especially in the United States, are very contentious. They tend to disagree and argue a lot. If there's a debate going on, and people are arguing very fiercely, they're arguing a lot. You might say the debate was contentious. I really like this word, and I recommend you try using it in your conversations. Cumbersome. Cumbersome. If something is described as cumbersome, it means it's heavy and difficult to handle. When I was younger, I used to babysit, and I would pick up a boy from school. And he had quite a cumbersome instrument. He played a very large, upright string bass, and it barely fit in my car because it was so cumbersome, So usually this word is used to describe something very large and somewhat awkward to move around. Definitely a bit more formal and advanced than everyday English. You'll often see this word in a book or in writing. Detrimental. Detrimental. If something is described as detrimental, it means it is harmful or dangerous. And usually, we use the word detrimental to describe something very, extremely harmful or dangerous. For example, smoking cigarettes is detrimental to your health. It can have very, very negative consequences. Discerning. Discerning. Discerning means you have really good judgment. For example, someone who studies art a lot would have a discerning eye for good art, or they would have a discerning eye for valuable art. If someone has really good opinions, really researched opinions about something, you might say they have very discerning opinions on that topic. This is kind of a positive word. It definitely complements their judgment. Discreet. Discreet. If you do something discreetly or say something is discreet, it means doing it in a more hidden way to avoid attention. If you're planning a surprise party for someone, you might want to be discreet when you do things for the planning. For example, you wouldn't want to very obviously buy balloons, you'd want to do it discreetly. Maybe you hide them somewhere in your house. You might not want to show the cake you buy. You would want to be discreet. Eloquent. Eloquent. If you are eloquent, it means you speak very well and are very persuasive, when you speak and when you write. If you give a very eloquent speech, or want to compliment someone on their writing, you could say, "You write so eloquently." Exasperate. Exasperate. If you exasperate someone, you annoy them greatly. If you say something is exasperating, it means it is very annoying and frustrating. Sometimes when kids ask you lots of questions in a row, they say, "What's that? What are you using that for? Why do you have that? Where are we going? What are we doing?" It can be a bit exasperating. Exemplary. Exemplary. If something is exemplary, it serves as a good example. Often, when a child behaves very well, they are quiet. They sit at the dinner table and eat their food very politely. We might say that is exemplary behavior. It just means it's so good. It's an example for other children. Flabbergasted. Flabbergasted. If someone is flabbergasted, it means they are extremely surprised or shocked. And this is a really fun English word to pronounce. It sounds made up, but it's really a word in the dictionary. Flabbergasted. I was absolutely flabbergasted. The last time I went grocery shopping because my total price for all my groceries was so expensive, so I was extremely shocked. Although it seems like everything is expensive these days, so maybe I wasn't as flabbergasted as I would have been 3 years ago. Haphazard. Haphazard. This next English word I am sometimes guilty of mispronouncing. Along with many other native English speakers, the word is haphazardly. But some people think it's haphazardly. And when I tell you the definition, you'll understand why. If something is done haphazardly, it means it's done without planning or any kind of order. For example, instead of putting books back on the shelf alphabetically, nice and neat, if you just throw them on the shelf in any order, and maybe some are lying this way and some are this way, we would describe that as doing a haphazard job, so it means there's a lack of effort, and you're not very organized in how you do something. Often, when events are poorly planned, we call it haphazard planning. Hypothetical. Hypothetical. If something is hypothetical, it's based on theory or assumption, but not based on what is actually happening. Often, when people are trying to solve a problem or figure out the best way they're going to do something, they think about many hypothetical situations. That's the most common way this word is used, a hypothetical situation. It means you're thinking about all the things that could possibly happen, but none of them have actually happened before. Someone might ask you, "What would you do if you won the lottery?" You might say, "Well, that's a very hypothetical situation because it's very unlikely. It definitely hasn't happened yet. But I'll think about the situation as if it were just an idea." Impeccable. Impeccable. If something is impeccable, it is perfect and without flaws. You might know someone who is very clean, very tidy, and likes everything to be very nice. You might call their house impeccable if it's so clean, organized, and beautiful. Or if you have something very old, but it has no flaws, you could say it's in impeccable condition. I've had these shoes for several years, but they're still in impeccable condition. It means there are no tears or dirt on them. They just look perfect, incessant. Incessant. If something is incessant, it means it never stops, and it's very continuous. For example, if you've had a lot of rain in the past few days, you could say this rain is absolutely incessant. It just won't stop. It feels very continuous. Or if there is. So usually we use this word to describe something negative that feels ongoing or occurring. Innate. Innate, if we say something or someone has an innate ability, it means they were born with it, and it's very natural. That's the most common way the word innate is used. For example, Adele, Dave Grohl, Lady Gaga, we would describe these musicians as having innate talent. They are so talented, they must have just been born with these skills rather than working very hard on them. So if you have an innate talent, it means you're just naturally good at it without even trying very hard. Inquisitive. Inquisitive. If someone is described as inquisitive, it means they ask a lot of questions. They are very curious and eager to learn. We often describe children as being very inquisitive. Sometimes when someone is being very nosy, and we wonder why they're so curious, and we kind of see it as a negative thing, we might ask, "Why are you being so inquisitive right now?" Or so questioning. Lackadaisical. Lackadaisical. If you describe someone as lackadaisical, it means they lack enthusiasm and determination. If someone has a lackadaisical attitude at work, it means they are not very driven to complete tasks. They are essentially doing a half-hearted job. They are not doing a good job. So this is a very negative adjective to describe someone, and it happens to be a very fun word to pronounce. Though I would say this is quite an advanced English word. Lackadaisical. Lethargic. Lethargic. If someone is lethargic, they are sluggish or slow, and they are very apathetic, meaning they don't really care what's happening. This is another negative adjective. You're essentially calling someone kind of lazy when you use this word. Or often we use this word when someone is sick, and they just don't have the energy to do anything. For example, when it's very hot outside, sometimes when it's extremely hot, it can make people feel lethargic, like they can't really get up to do anything. And they move very slowly. If you go to the doctor, they might ask you if you've been feeling lethargic if they're trying to diagnose your sickness. And it would just mean you have low energy. Meticulous. Meticulous. If someone is meticulous, they are very careful and precise. This is definitely a positive quality. Or if you do something meticulously, it means you do it very carefully to try to avoid making a mistake. Some people, when there's a problem, do very meticulous research to try to find the answer. So instead of just asking their friend/assistant on Google and reading every article on the topic, they are very meticulous in their research. If someone is doing something very carefully, like someone decorating a cake, and they don't want to make any mistakes or have any part of the cake look sloppy, they would do it meticulously. Nonchalant. Nonchalant. If someone is nonchalant, they are very calm and unconcerned. If you have a nonchalant attitude, it means, you don't really care what's happening, you're just happy to be there. It's not really a positive or negative thing, but sometimes if people think you're not being formal enough or not energetic enough, they'll say, "Why are you being so nonchalant right now?" Or if they think you should be more concerned about something, they might tell you, "You shouldn't be so nonchalant about this. You have a test on Friday. You shouldn't be so nonchalant about studying. You should start studying right now." So they're telling you that you need to care more and be more concerned. Nostalgic. Nostalgic. If someone is nostalgic, they are longing for the past. It means they wish it were like the old days. Many movies and TV shows play on people's nostalgia. It means people's longing for the past. So, for example, we would call a remake of an old movie. For example, they remade The Little Mermaid, even though that was an old movie from my childhood. They made it now. So people like me who are nostalgic, who like old things from our past, would want to see it, and kids could see The Little Mermaid today too. Oblivious. Oblivious. If someone is oblivious, they are unaware and unmindful. Maybe someone who is studying very hard. They're really focused on their book or their work, and there's just absolute chaos going on around them. Maybe even an emergency situation. They could be oblivious to it if they're very focused, so in that case, it wouldn't be a really negative way to describe someone because it's like they're so focused on one thing. They don't care or notice the other things because they are oblivious. Now, sometimes we use this as a negative adjective. If someone just seems unobservant, and they don't notice problems, they're unwilling to help because it just seems like they don't know what's going on. You could say they seem absolutely oblivious to what's happening. Perplexing. Perplexing. If something is perplexing, it is confusing and very difficult to understand. Often, if you buy a piece of furniture online, and it comes with lots of different pieces, the instructions can be a bit perplexing because it's hard to tell what size screw they're talking about, what piece of wood they're talking about. It can be quite perplexing trying to assemble a piece of furniture, especially from places like IKEA. So if you have a problem that's very confusing, you can use this advanced word perplexing to describe the situation. Pragmatic. Pragmatic. If someone is pragmatic, they are very realistic about a situation. If you use a pragmatic way to solve a problem, it means you try to do it in the best recommended way. You're not trying to do anything crazy. If you describe a person as pragmatic, it means they always just act very sensibly. They don't like spending a lot of money on useless things, or very trendy things, or just very sensible. It's a really good quality to be pragmatic. Precarious. Precarious. If something is described as precarious, it is unstable and risky, so you'll often hear this word in writing, precarious. If there's some kind of risky situation where we don't know the outcome. Maybe someone gets invited to 2 birthday parties that are happening at the exact same time. That can be quite a precarious situation because you wouldn't want to offend one person by going to the other person's party. Of course, hopefully, you can make it to both parties, but it might be quite precarious if you can't go to the same one. So it's quite risky figuring out the situation. If you're climbing a ladder, and the ladder started to wobble, you would be in a very precarious or risky and unstable situation. Resilient. Resilient. If someone or something is resilient, they are able to recover very quickly. Sometimes we describe people or businesses as financially resilient if they can survive a hard time. Maybe a big accident happens, and they have to spend a lot of money. Or maybe a business has to close down for a little while, but they can still survive financially. We might say they are resilient because they are able to recover and succeed despite challenges. Spontaneous. Spontaneous. If you do something spontaneously, it means it happens very quickly without planning. You could also use the word impulsive for this. If you take a spontaneous trip to the beach, it means you just wake up and decide to go. Some people like to be spontaneously romantic. So maybe they show up at home with flowers and say, "These are for you, my wife," and your wife says, "You know, what's the occasion? Is it my birthday or our anniversary?" No. Just spontaneous. It means just for no reason. Impulsively you decided to be spontaneously romantic. The last word is uncanny. Uncanny. If something is uncanny, it is strange and mysterious. Some people have an uncanny, remarkable way of predicting the future. So it means they make predictions, they say things they think are going to happen. It's very strange and mysterious because they often end up being right. Sometimes if 2 people are thinking the same thing without discussing it with each other, and then they speak out loud, and it turns out they are thinking the same thing, it just feels strange and mysterious. You could say, that is absolutely uncanny. Now, it's important to have some context when you're learning English. I want you to imagine that a close friend or a close family member, maybe your sister or your brother, or your mom or dad, asked you to take care of something while they're on vacation. Or they're out of town. Let's say they asked you to watch their house, or let's say they asked you to watch their children. If you want to show that you have no doubts about your own abilities to take care of this, you can say, I can handle this. I can handle this. No problem. Or if someone starts to doubt whether you can handle something or whether you can take on the responsibility, you can say, I've got this under control. This means that what you're doing is working. Everything is going well. Everything is under control. Nothing has gotten out of control or chaotic. I've got this under control. Let's say someone at work asks you if you can handle a project. Or if you can handle a job. You can say, I am confident in my abilities. I am confident in my abilities. This just shows you know your skills are sufficient to do the job. Now, this next phrase can sound rude, so you have to be careful. But if someone says, do you know how to do this? You can say, I know what I'm doing. Now, if someone is trying to help you, and you're trying to push them away, you don't want their help, you can say, I know what I'm doing. That's considered rude, but you can say, oh, I know what I'm doing. This means you've either done it before, you've rehearsed it, or you know exactly how the process goes. I know what I'm doing. If you want to show someone that you have planned and prepared for a job or a project or a task, you can say, I'm fully prepared for this. Maybe someone gave you a really difficult job at work. You could say, I've actually studied how to do this before, I've practiced. I'm fully prepared for this. Now, maybe someone has warned you that a job or a task might be difficult. Maybe you're going to watch your relative's 2 dogs. And your relative might say these dogs can be a little challenging. They can be hard to handle. Sometimes they don't listen. Sometimes they might run away. You can say, I am up for the challenge. I am up for the challenge. If you want to show that you're enthusiastic and willing, say, I am up for the challenge. If you want to say you've made a decision and you think you made the right decision, and you're reassuring someone, you can say, I trust my judgment, or you can say, I trust my judgment. I know this will work out. Again, if someone gives you something very difficult, especially at work, you can say, I'm ready to take this on. This shows you're ready to take on more responsibility or more work. I'm ready to take this on. If you want to show that you're confident, even in a challenging situation where others have given up, you can say, this is within my reach, or you could say, this is within our reach. It means success is within your reach. It means you can do it. You're very close. We're really close to our goal. This is within our reach. And finally, if you want to just quickly and formally tell someone you can handle it, you can do the job. They don't need to worry. Say, I've got it covered. I've got it covered. Don't worry. Now that we've talked about projecting confidence in yourself and showing other people you're confident and they should trust you, let's talk about projecting confidence in a situation or projecting confidence that a situation will be successful. Let's think about your job or your workplace. Let's say you've been planning a project for many months, and now it's time to see if your plan works. You've given everyone different responsibilities, and you're confident that you planned, and it's going to work. Let's talk about some phrases you can use to show your confidence. You can tell someone, don't stress. Don't stress. It's going to go well. Don't stress. Don't stress can sometimes annoy people because they can't help feeling stressed or worried or anxious, but you should at least know the phrase, I'm not stressing, don't worry. If you want to say things will be successful, and you believe they will, you can say, I'm sure everything will work out, especially if you have a friend who's very worried about their problem, and you just want to give some encouragement or advice. Show your confidence and say, I'm sure everything will work out. If something works out, it means it will end up happy, and everything will be carefree. I'm confident that this will go smoothly. When you say something will go smoothly, it means there will be no problems. No issues. Everything will go just as it should according to plan. We can describe this as smoothly. Everything will go smoothly. This again shows your confidence in the plan you've made. If you want to praise a plan and let everyone know things are going well, you can say everything is going according to plan. This is a very common phrase. It will go according to plan. Everything here is going according to plan. Great job, everyone. If someone asks you if you think the plan will work, you can say, I'm positive we'll get great results. I'm positive means you are very confident. You are very certain about something. I'm absolutely positive we'll get good results. This means you really believe in the plan you have. Again, let's use that phrase, it's all under control, to assure someone that the plan or the situation is going as it should, and that there won't be any big mistakes or big problems. If someone doubts your choice or your own plan, you can say, I have no doubts about it. I have no doubts about it. This will work. Show you're confident and say, we'll make this happen. This means you're willing to put in quite a bit of effort. And you believe in everyone's abilities to achieve the goal or be successful. I'll make this happen. We'll make this happen. If you want to show someone you've planned very carefully, you can say, I've thought this through too. To think something through means to plan every detail. I've thought this through, and be sure to tell someone, there's no reason to worry. There's no reason to worry. Let's talk about some phrases you can use to respond confidently in conversation to anyone. The first confident response you can use is absolutely. I think the plan will work. Absolutely. This means you fully agree and are also confident in the plan. You could also say instead of absolutely, without a doubt. Remember, you don't always want to say the same thing in English. You don't want to always sound repetitive. It can just help demonstrate your fluency and your varied vocabulary by saying either absolutely or without a doubt. You can say, I completely agree or I couldn't agree more. This means you fully agree. These two phrases mean the exact same thing. But again, it's about varying vocabulary. I completely agree, I couldn't agree more. Your boss might be telling you the plan or telling you how responsibilities are going to be divided in the company. And you could say, that's right. Or you could even say, that's exactly right. You can also say, that sounds perfect. Sometimes I just say perfect. And that also conveys a lot of confidence in English, just to say perfect. You can use the idiom to be on board with something to mean you very much agree. I'm on board with that. It means you agree completely. Be sure to praise someone's idea when you think it's a good idea, and you want to share that it's a good idea. You could say, that's a great idea. I know we can do this. And if you really want to go above and beyond and show you agree with the plan and you believe in it, you can say, I have total confidence in the plan. There are so many times in life when we don't know if we're making the right decision. But it's important to at least be confident in the decision you're making. Especially if you want others around you to believe in your plan and believe in your decision making. Let's talk about those phrases that can help you project confidence in your decisions. You could say, this is the right choice, and if you want to say you're not going to think about the problem or the issue anymore, you can say, I've made up my mind. This means you're not going to change your decision or change your mind. I've made up my mind. If you want to emphasize that you still agree with a decision you made in the past, you can say, I stand by my decision, so you can stand by a person or stand by a decision. It means you support either the person or your decision. I still stand by my decision. It means I still support my decision and think it was the right one to make. A course of action is the plan you choose. You can say, I trust this course of action, or you could even say, I trust the course of action you chose. This means you believe the plan will work successfully. I'm committed to this path. Sometimes we call a plan or a series of decisions a path. I'm committed to this path. This means you're not going to change your decision here. I'm certain this is the best way forward. This is the same as saying, I'm certain this is the best decision, but instead, sometimes we say, I'm certain this is the best way forward. If you want to tell someone we should follow this plan, you can say, let's move forward with it. Let's move forward with it. I'm confident in the strategy. And this decision was well thought out. When we want to compliment a plan or the decisions you made or someone else made, you can say, it was well thought out. It means everything was considered. No details or problems were missed. This is possibly the most important topic of today's lesson. It's encouraging others to be confident. You can be a good teammate by using all the phrases in this next list to encourage others that you are confident in them, and they should be confident in themselves. Of course, you can just say, "You've got this, you've got this." It just shows you're confident in their abilities to achieve something or do something. And this can be used in the most informal settings to the most professional. "You've got this. I believe in you." This means you believe in their abilities and talents. You're more than capable. This means not only can you do it, you are very skilled and very talented. You're more than capable of doing the job. Now be careful with this phrase because it can imply you have doubts when someone says they can't do something, like they're just being lazy. But you can say, "You are so capable, you can do it, we're going to succeed together. I know you'll do great. Don't worry. You're doing well." And remember, it's just so important to reassure people you work with or you get along with in life because your reassurance can really instill a lot of confidence. And that's what makes a good leader. Trust yourself. You've got this. If you want to tell someone they shouldn't doubt any decisions they're making, you can tell them, "Trust yourself," and that's a really powerful phrase. You're stronger than you think. Let's make this happen. If you are in the wrong, you are guilty or responsible for a mistake. Often when two people are arguing about who made the mistake, one person will eventually admit they are in the wrong. It means they're saying it's their fault. This is also a common phrase, admit that you are in the wrong. It means you admit or say that you broke the rules, and you're just being honest by saying you are in the wrong or responsible for the mistake. If you're in the wrong, you should definitely apologize. Often, if we want to say we promise to do something, even if there are circumstances that almost prevent us from doing it, we say we will do something no matter what. So when we say this phrase, "no matter what," it means regardless of the difficulties or circumstances. Maybe you want to promise you'll help your friend move on Saturday, and you really want to promise them, so you'll say, "I'll help you move on Saturday no matter what." So this might mean even if your car breaks down, or even if you get plans that sound more fun than helping your friend move, you're very committed, and you're giving them a very good promise. Sometimes we want to say that regardless of the circumstances or, it just always seems like something happened. For example, we say, "Every time I want to go outside and enjoy the day, no matter what, it rains." So it just means like, it seems like it always rains. Even if the circumstances are it's a day you want to enjoy, it just seems like it always happens. So no matter what means it always happens or something is bound to happen. Another phrase that goes along with "no matter what" is "no matter what I try." So this means you try or attempt many different methods to do something or solve a problem. And it seems like no matter what you try or however many things you try, it just doesn't work. My son has a toy car, and no matter what I try to do to fix this car, the wheels keep falling off. I might try gluing them, screwing them. I've tried all kinds of super glue to keep the wheels on, no matter what. It just keeps breaking. And I think it's because my son's a little rough with his toy. Have you ever been outside enjoying the day, and suddenly you realize or start thinking about the fact that you left the oven on at home, or you left something else hot on at home, and it makes you really worried? This is quite a common experience. One phrase we can use in this situation when a thought suddenly enters your mind, "it kind of strikes you," is you can say, "It dawned on me, so I was outside enjoying the day, and it dawned on me that I forgot to turn off my curling iron." So this means the thought just popped into my head. When we say something dawns on us, it means we realize something, or we think of something like a revolutionary or big idea, or just something we totally forgot before. If you've ever been out in public, and someone walks up to you and says your name, they say, "Oh hey Kayla, how's it going?" You might start talking to them and thinking to yourself, "I have no idea who this person is." But then during the conversation, they mention something about a time you met before, and it will dawn on you who they are and where you met. And this has happened to me. I forget people all the time, but it dawns on you in the middle of the conversation who they are. And hopefully, you can recover and make the conversation more polite and friendly after that. There are tons of ways in English to say you're annoyed or irritated. Here's another one. If you want to say you're annoyed or irritated, you can say you are irked. Now this is more of a slang or informal phrase if you want to say you're annoyed. For example, maybe someone you work with is always late, and you plan a meeting with them, and they're late to the meeting. You could say, "It really irked me when they were late to the meeting," or "It really irks me how they're always late." So irked means almost the exact same as annoyed or irritated. It's quite a negative word to say you are irked by someone or something. Maybe there's a sound in your room or in your house that keeps you up at night because it's so annoying. You might even say, "The sound of the dripping faucet really irks me." So it annoys you or irritates you? There are also so many ways in English to say calm down, take it easy, relax. Slow down. One very common way we say this, a very good informal phrase you'll hear every day in English, is slow your roll. It means stop going so fast. Stop rushing something. If you just relax and go slowly, it will be much calmer. Maybe someone is excited because you said you were going to plan a trip with them, and they say, "I can go buy the tickets right now. I'm going to start packing," and you say, "Hey, slow your roll. I need to figure out if I can get time off work or a few days off work before we can buy the tickets and plan this," so it just means relax. We need to slow down the process. Don't be so eager to start the process. Slow your roll. Maybe if you have kids, and they come home and start grabbing all this food, you might say, "Hey, slow your roll. We're about to have dinner, so don't just grab all this food and eat because I'm going to serve you dinner. And I still want you to be hungry." Slow your roll means relax. Calm down. Slow down the process. To slip through the cracks. This phrase is used to say a problem was overlooked or ignored. In hospitals, it's very common that health problems sometimes slip through the cracks. You have to be very careful when you're a doctor or a nurse, and you have to communicate constantly, or patients might have a health problem that just doesn't get reported, or they might have some symptoms the doctor doesn't know about because of poor communication. And if a problem slips through the cracks in a hospital, it can be a matter of life and death. And another way we use this phrase very often is when students are in school with teachers. If the teacher doesn't realize a student is not being successful, well, they're not really grasping some concepts, they're slipping through the cracks. It means they're going to move on to the next grade level, and they're not actually getting any smarter. So it's a problem. They're being neglected if they slip through the cracks. We can also use this phrase to slip through the cracks when a problem just goes completely unnoticed. And then we want to say, "Why wasn't this problem addressed?" Or "Why wasn't this mistake noticed?" We might just say, "Well, it just kind of slipped through the cracks." It just means it was such a small problem at the time that no one noticed until it became a bigger problem. The next phrase I want to teach you today is the phrase to check all the boxes. This phrase is used to say something meets all the requirements or criteria. For example, when we're looking for a house, we might say, "This house totally checks all the boxes." It means it has all the things you really wanted in a house. Maybe you needed a certain number of bedrooms for the family. Maybe you were hoping to have a big bathtub and a big kitchen and a big yard. It checks all the boxes. Or if you're looking at a house, and you really like the house, you really like the neighborhood, but you were hoping the house maybe would have a more updated look, or it would have nicer bedrooms. You could say, "The house doesn't quite check all of the boxes." It just means it doesn't meet all the criteria you had in your mind. If you want to tell someone you need to work hard to meet all the expectations and all the criteria of a project, you could say, "We really need to check all of the boxes on this one and work very carefully." It just means you don't miss anything that needs to be done. Have you ever had one of those moments in life where you just felt so confident and so successful? In English, we have a phrase to describe this feeling. The phrase is riding high. When you feel like you're riding high, you just feel like everything is going right. Things are going your way in life. After my wedding, it was such a fun time with all my friends, my family, everyone had a great time. I got wedding gifts, and we were going on our honeymoon. I was totally riding high. And another way we use this phrase in English. Sometimes we're not talking about drugs or intoxication when we say we're on a high. It just means we're having a great time when we feel like we're really successful. Things are going our way, they're going our way in life. So you can either say riding high or on a high. At first glance, you use this phrase very often in English to say that upon our first observation or the first time we look at something, it appears one way. But if you look at it further, after the first glance, it might be something else. For example, I was at the park the other day with my kids. And there was this woman there. She had red hair, and she also had 2 little kids with her with red hair. So at first glance, I thought she was their mom. And I said, "Oh, how old are your kids?" And she said, "I'm actually the nanny," meaning like the babysitter or the person who watches the kids. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for assuming you were the mom." She said, "No, I'm not the mom. I just happen to have red hair like the kids I watch all day." So at first glance, I assumed she was the mom, but after asking her, it turns out she wasn't. And it was a little awkward, but she said it's a common mistake other people make. So at first glance, you might think something, and then you might end up being right. And later, when we're asked to solve a problem and we're an expert on something, we might look at the problem just very quickly and without making a final judgment on the problem or saying, "You know, this is how you actually solve it." We might just say what our thoughts are initially. We might say, "At first glance, I think you might be looking at this problem." And when we say this, we mean we want to investigate a little bit more before we can say for sure how to solve the problem. Or we need to investigate a little bit more to be confident in how we will solve the problem. But you're just giving your first guess by looking at it very quickly, and that's how we use the phrase "at first glance." Another phrase that's very similar to "at first glance" is "off the cuff." When we do something off the cuff, it just means we didn't have any preparation or we didn't put much thought into it. We just did it very quickly because, you know, we were just asked to do it right now. A very common way we use this phrase is we say, "I'm just giving a speech off the cuff." It means you didn't prepare for the speech you had to give, and you didn't really know ahead of time you were going to give a speech. Or maybe you did. You just didn't prepare, but it just means you're speaking just from your brain. You don't have anything formally prepared for the speech. You're speaking off the cuff. Again, you might ask an expert some questions about a problem or an issue you're having, and they might just speak off the cuff. It just means they don't know much about the situation yet, but they're just giving their expert opinion without much prepared thought. A phrase I find very useful is the phrase "to work somebody in." When you work someone in or work something into your schedule, that's how this phrase is commonly used. It means you're going to try to make a little bit of time for something. Often when you go to someone who provides a service, like maybe they do haircuts or they do nails or something, and they have a busy schedule, and you approach them last minute, "Hey, do you have any time to do my hair today? You know, it's really important. I have a big wedding this weekend, or I have an important meeting, and I want to look good." They say, "Well, I'm booked solid for the day." It means our schedule is totally full, but if I have a little bit of time, usually when I eat lunch, I can work you in. It just means they might try to make a little bit of space in their schedule. Maybe if someone doesn't show up, or if they just want to do your hair over their lunch break, they work you into their schedule. Maybe it's important for you to start exercising, but you feel like you're very busy. You might say, "I need to work in some time for exercise into my schedule." It just means you need to make some space. Even though you're busy, you need to try to find a few minutes a day to exercise or go for a nice walk. I recommend working in some time to study English into your schedule every day. A very common phrase you might hear English speakers say is "it's harder than it sounds." So this phrase means you might say something. You might say, "You know, make some time to study English every day. It sounds very easy." Of course, you could just watch a TV show in English, or you could just watch a YouTube video or read a book in English. It sounds very easy, but it's harder than it sounds. Another way we use this phrase is we say, "It's more difficult than it sounds." Of course, difficult and hard can mean the same thing. Maybe your friend just lost their job and you say, "Well, maybe you should start your own business." Your friend might say, "Starting your own business is harder than it sounds." It means, you know, you can just say it. It sounds easy just to say it, but actually doing it is harder. It takes a lot of time. So we use this phrase when we're just saying someone is telling us something like it's easy, but we want to acknowledge or tell them it's actually hard. Do you have the guts to go skydiving? I definitely do not have the guts to do that, but many people do. This phrase, to have the guts, it means to have the courage or be brave enough to do something. And we can use this phrase to have the guts in extreme examples like skydiving, or maybe just a smaller example, like, do you have the guts to ask that girl out on a date? It just means, are you brave enough? And do you have the courage to do something? Guts in English is a slang word for courage. If you want to say someone is really good at something, and they did it better now than they ever have before, you can use this English phrase. The phrase is, you have outdone yourself. So the phrase is to outdo oneself. A very common way this phrase is used is if there's someone who cooks food, like a chef, and they're really, really good at cooking, and you've had many good meals from them. You go over to their house, you visit, and they make you the best meal ever. You could say, you have really outdone yourself. This is a very polite comment. It's a really good compliment to give someone who cooks food when you find their food really, really good. So often when people do really nice things for us, we visit them, and they just provide great comfort for you. You might say, you've really outdone yourself, and if you're in a competition or you're at work, and you think you did a really good job, you could say, I've really outdone myself this time. It just means you beat your personal best. When you want to say you need to focus on something carefully or more intensely, you can say you're going to zero in on it. For example, if you're in school, college, or university, it's the end of the semester, and you really need to zero in on studying for your final exams. It means you need to stop doing other things because these exams are so important. You need to zero in and focus very hard. Another thing is if you're searching for something and you want to focus just on one thing or one area, you can use this phrase to zero in on something. When there's a crime happening, and there's a detective or a police officer looking for the person who did it, they might start getting some clues that help them zero in on the person they think committed the crime, or, as we call them, the suspect. So if they're pretty sure someone did it, they'll start zeroing in on that person, trying to find more evidence that they committed the crime. A very common way to say someone followed the rules or guidelines, or that they were very honest, is to say they played by the rules at work. It's very important to play by the rules. It means don't lie, cheat, or steal. Now, sometimes when you're competing against someone, they might do some dishonest things to try to win, and that means they did not play by the rules. Some people use this phrase, hey, we don't play by the rules, to mean they don't do things the conventional way or the normal way it's done. They try to do something revolutionary or different to accomplish a task. And often when people use this phrase that way, it doesn't mean they're trying to be dishonest. It means they're just not trying to do everything the same way, or according to the rules that were set long ago. So for this phrase, it doesn't have to be very formal rules. You can either talk about just the conventional way something is done, meaning the rules, or you can just mean someone is honest and playing by the rules. When you want to say someone planned something very carefully and meticulously, you can say they left nothing to chance. This is, again, a very common phrase in English used when someone is just very meticulous, and they want nothing to go wrong in a very important plan. Often when people plan their weddings, they plan, when the photos are going to be, how they're arriving, exactly what they're wearing, exactly who's driving their grandma to the wedding. They do not leave anything to chance. It just means they try to think through every detail so everything happens correctly, and everything is good on the day. And nothing just spontaneously happens that ruins the day or, creates a problem, so they leave nothing to chance. If you want to tell someone to be very prepared for something, be sure to tell them, do not leave anything to chance. It just means really think through all the details of the plan. A phrase that's kind of similar to leaving nothing to chance is the phrase leave no stone unturned, and this phrase is used more for searching for something. It means you need to be very thorough when searching for something. It's almost like if you were searching through a pile of rocks in the woods, you wouldn't want to miss a rock or leave a stone unturned. So this is a phrase we use. You'll have to let me know if you have a similar phrase in your language as well. This idiom, leave no stone unturned, I think is quite universal. Maybe someone in your family has a rare health problem, And you've gone to every expert you could find, you've Googled many times and searched for the answer to the problem. You have left no stone unturned. It means you've searched everywhere for the solution to the problem. And if you're searching your house for an item, or you're searching somewhere where you think you lost it, you could also use this idiom to say you searched very thoroughly. I lost my phone yesterday, and I went back to the park. I left no stone unturned searching for it. It means you were very thorough and searched everywhere it could possibly be. To stay on track. If you want to say someone is staying focused and on schedule, you can say they are staying on track. You can think of a running race that's on a track or a circular running path, and if someone stays on track, they will eventually get to the finish line. So that's kind of the idea where this idiom comes from. Sometimes when you're trying to finish a project at work, there might be some setbacks, but it's important to try to stay on track with the timeline you created so you can still finish the project on time. Maybe you tell your family, okay, we need to clean the house today, and while you're cleaning, someone in your family finds old photos, and you're all looking at the old photos and your old photo albums, which can be very, very fun, but you need to put them away and stay on track. Otherwise, the house won't get cleaned for the day, you guys are not focused. You need to tell your family, let's stay on track, let's keep cleaning, and we can look at these after. If you're familiar with the sport of baseball, this next idiom might make sense to you. The phrase is out of left field. When something is particularly unexpected or surprising, we say it came out of left field, typically in baseball. We say left field is a less active position, and not as many balls get hit out there. So it's far away, and we just don't expect much to happen out there. So this idiom just translates to meaning something comes, out of nowhere, you don't expect it. You're really surprised by it. You don't really have a reason why it happened. We say it came out of left field. Maybe your friend who doesn't even have a boyfriend or a husband comes to you and says, I'm pregnant. You would say, wow, that came out of left field. I wasn't expecting that. And that would be very, very surprising. You can also use this for very nice surprises. For example, maybe someone you know brought you some warm cookies. You could say, oh, so unexpected and out of left field. Thank you so much. It means it's not your birthday or any holiday. They just did something nice totally for no reason. It seems like a force to be reckoned with. This phrase means you shouldn't take something really influential or powerful very lightly. And you should be very prepared if you're going to deal with them or you're going to try to fight against them. This is a very common way this phrase is used. The phrase is a force to be reckoned with. The phrase reckon with something means prepare for it. Often when we use this phrase, it's a force to be reckoned with, means it's a really powerful thing or really influential thing. If you're going to try to fight against it, you need to be very prepared and not think it's just easy. The US military is a force to be reckoned with. Of course, we have more military than anyone else in the world, so people try not to reckon with the military because, they're very powerful. We can just describe people who are very hardworking or strong also as a force to be reckoned with. If you want to say someone will fight for their ideas or opinions no matter what, and we notice they're very hardworking and strong, we might say, you are a force to be reckoned with. It just means if someone wants to argue with you, they better really be prepared because you're very hardworking and strong. A great informal phrase to say something is of the highest quality is to say it is top-notch. If you want to recommend a hotel or a restaurant to someone, and you want to tell them the food there is really good, it's really high quality, and everything about it is good, you could say, it is top-notch, or you could say, the food is top-notch or the service is top-notch. You're essentially saying it's the highest quality. You can also compliment someone's work or performance by saying, your work was top-notch, or your performance was top-notch. If you want to say something isn't the highest quality, but it's quite good, you can say, it's perfectly fine. The weather today was perfectly fine. It means it wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold, it wasn't the best day ever. Maybe it wasn't a day you want to go swimming, or you want to spend a lot of time outside, but if you say it's perfectly good, it means it's okay. If you want to say perfectly fine, it means there's no problem with it. Someone might tell you, it's perfectly fine to ask for help if you need it. It means there's no problem with asking for help, or maybe someone invites you over to their house, and they say, it's perfectly fine if you want to keep your shoes on. In my house, that's not perfectly fine, but for some people, it's perfectly fine. They don't really care if you keep your shoes on when you walk into their house. Another really informal and quite funny phrase to use when you want to tell someone to calm down, relax, or slow down is to say cool your jets. Okay, so we think of a jet airplane or an airplane, and they're very hot and ready to go. The engines are so, you might say cool your jets, meaning, turn them off. Don't be so ready to go because we need to just calm down for a minute. Maybe your friend is asking you, are you on your way yet? Are you coming? You might say, cool your jets. I need to take a shower and eat breakfast before I come over to your house. It just means relax. I'll be there in my own time, so be careful how you use this phrase because it can be offensive if someone is impatient, and they might find it offensive if you tell them to calm down. If you want to tell someone they need to put their time and energy towards something, you can tell them to channel their energy towards it. For example, when your kids are crying and complaining, you might say, why don't you channel your energy into something more productive? Like reading a book, or playing with Legos, or doing some art. It just means instead of putting your energy towards complaining or in a negative way, channel your energy towards something positive and productive. Sometimes when people have tragedies happen in their life, they channel their energy into doing something productive for the community, like starting a charity or honoring someone who passed away. They channel their grief, their energy into, doing good things for other people to honor that person. So when we tell someone to channel their energy towards something, we're just saying they need to try to put their effort or enthusiasm towards something else rather than something negative or unproductive. Some people say The Simpsons show is dead on with its predictions. If you haven't heard about this, Google Simpsons theories. They predicted many things in their show that actually happened later in real life. So we use the phrase dead on to mean accurate. This is an informal phrase we use often in English. Maybe you're in an archery competition with a bow and arrow, and you hit the bullseye. You could say the shot was dead on. It was very accurate. If you want to say two things are completely different and not even comparable, you can say they are like apples and oranges. This idiom is quite fun to use. So American football and what the rest of the world calls football are like apples and oranges. They're not the same at all. Just because we call them the same name doesn't mean they're comparable. So it's just your opinion, like, they're not the same at all. They're like apples and oranges. Of course, they're both fruit, but they taste completely different, and they feel completely different. Some people prefer Coke over Pepsi, and they like Coke so much they say, Coke and Pepsi are like apples and oranges. They can't even be compared, or some people might like Pepsi more than Coke. They might say the same thing, just with Pepsi instead of Coke. So if you want to say two things aren't the same quality or just can't be compared, even though they're similar, you can say they are apples and oranges. If you want to say that a moment was very awkward and embarrassing, you can use this phrase cringeworthy. Maybe you go to a stand-up comedy show, and the comedian is telling jokes, and no one is laughing. You could say the performance was absolutely cringeworthy. It was very uncomfortable. Or maybe there was a moment in a work meeting where someone starts crying and gets very emotional, and everyone just feels very awkward and uncomfortable about it. You could say it was kind of cringe-worthy. Now this phrase is definitely associated with something negative, so be careful how you use it. If you see something that someone would really be interested in, you can say it's up their alley. This is an interesting, kind of fun phrase we use to say something really matches someone's interests. For example, you might have someone in your life who really enjoys anime, and you see that the movie theater in town is playing some kind of anime movie. You could say, this looks like it's right up your alley. It means it matches your interests very well. Do you have someone you have a crush on? If you have a crush on someone, it means you have someone you're romantically interested in, but you haven't told them yet. So you might be a girl and say, I have a crush on Michael. It means Michael doesn't know yet. He might have guessed, you haven't told him, but it seems like you kind of like him. So usually when two people have a crush on each other, it means they like each other, and they'll probably start dating if one of them makes the first move. So what does it mean to make the first move? This is an idiom that means one person will kind of be direct with the other person. They will initiate the romantic relationship. So they'll say, "Hey, do you want to go on a date with me?" Or, "Hey, I really like you." So that's the first move, as we say in English. And it's just a common idiom that means who's going to be the first person to initiate the relationship or the conversation, even. Do you know what it means to fall for someone? This idea means you start to develop romantic feelings for someone. I didn't mean to love him, her, but I really fell for them. It means whatever that person did really made you think they were a kind and loving person, and you want to have a romantic partnership with them. So I would say, out of these three, the most common phrase is to say, "Yeah, we're dating." It means we're together. You know, we're not seeing other people right now. Going steady is a really old-fashioned phrase, but you'll still hear old people in the United States say two people are going steady. And it means the same thing as dating. They're just officially in a relationship. They like each other. And the last phrase you'll hear a lot, and you'll even hear it in movies and TV shows. When people say they're exclusive, it means they are officially dating. They're not seeing other people, they are exclusive to each other. So they won't be, you know, talking to other men or talking to other women. They're only with each other. Two important phrasal verbs you need to know for romantic relationships are, of course, to break up and to make up. When you break up, you end the romantic relationship. We can also have friend breakups, meaning, you know, we don't agree with our friends anymore. Maybe we had a big fight or a big falling out, which is a really big argument, and we just don't like each other anymore. So then if we become friends again or become romantic partners again, we make up. It means we apologize. Yes. We say, "Sorry, let's get back together. Let's make up." So break up and make up are opposites. Break up means end the relationship. And make up means start the relationship again after apologizing. Now, many people have probably watched the show Friends who are watching this because it's one of the most common ways to learn English is watching the TV show Friends. Of course, you remember Ross and Rachel. They were on a break. I don't really hear people say this phrase much anymore when it comes to relationships, but in the episode where they're on a break, and, you know, they argue, was it a break or did they break up? It means you basically decided to pause your relationship, whether it was from a small fight. But it doesn't mean you're officially ending the relationship. If you're married to someone and thinking about getting divorced or no longer being married to each other, you might separate. So you might say, "I'm separated," meaning you're not legally divorced. Your marriage isn't dissolved in the eyes of the government, but you're no longer living together, and you're no longer in a romantic relationship. Sometimes people separate and don't legally get divorced, but then if they make up, they might get back together and continue their marriage. So separating and divorce are kind of in the same realm of phrases in English. And usually, if you separate, you get divorced if you were married before. Let's talk about some happier relationship phrases. When you get engaged to someone, it means you plan on marrying them. Engaged. In the United States, the most common way relationships get engaged is the man gets down on one knee, opens a box with a ring, and says, "Will you marry me?" And if the woman says yes, they are engaged. Of course, relationships are all different today, so it doesn't always work like that, and some people are even more informal about it. They just decide one day they're going to get married. And before they actually get married, they say they're engaged. I am engaged to my fiancé/fiancée. Let's talk about these two words we borrowed from the French language, fiancé and fiancée. And if you're wondering if these two words have different pronunciations, the answer is no. When a man and woman are engaged to be married, they will both refer to each other as their fiancé. And I don't even think people worry too much about the spelling of fiancé/fiancée in English because, of course, it's different in French when you're talking about a woman versus a man when you spell fiancé/fiancée. So for the time before you actually have the wedding and the wedding ceremony, you can call your future husband or future wife your fiancé. And that's only if you guys are engaged. You've already announced you plan on getting married. When two people finally get married in the United States, for a short period after they get married, usually about a year, we say the two people are newlyweds. It means they recently got married. While you guys are newlyweds, it means you got married probably within the last year or so. There's no official time period for being a newlywed, but that's usually the time frame we call. Two people just got married. Newlyweds. Maybe you have new neighbors moving into the apartment next to you or the house next to you, and they just got married. You could say they're newlyweds. Now, if you're single, meaning you're not in a relationship, you're not even talking to anyone, and you're not married, you might want to get on the apps. This is a newer phrase. I'm too old to have ever gotten on the apps. I got married too long ago, but basically, it means you use dating apps. So often, when people break up with a boyfriend or break up with a girlfriend, people tell them, you need to get on the apps, so it means you need to start looking for dates using the dating apps. And I'm not sure if this is the best way to meet someone, but it seems quite common these days to use a dating app. Let's talk about some ways to describe relationship problems because there are so many problems when it comes to dating. Marriage, your relationships. If you want to say the relationship between two people is in trouble because maybe they've been arguing a lot and having difficulties, you can say their relationship is on the rocks, or you could even say, my marriage is on the rocks. It just means it's in trouble. When people are in the dating world, they start dating, and often, well, I'm not sure if it often happens, but it definitely happens to people where one person in the relationship just completely stops contact. They decide not to talk to the other person anymore, and they don't even give them a reason why. This is called ghosting. So to ghost someone means to just not talk to them at all anymore. Like you become a ghost, basically invisible, and you give them no reason why. And of course, this is very, very unethical to do to someone. You should never ghost someone because it leaves them with lots of questions, like did they do something wrong? And it's very hurtful to ghost someone or basically just stop talking to them and give them no reason. Often, when we want to talk about relationships or two people who just aren't good together, they just haven't treated each other very well, you've done a lot of bad things to each other. You might say their relationship is toxic. It's just bad for both people involved. If you know a couple, and they just always argue, and it's just exhausting to be around them, you might say they have a toxic relationship. If we call a person individually toxic, it can also mean they just create a lot of problems again, they argue a lot. They're just not good people. A very, very complicated situation we sometimes have in relationships is a love triangle. So this would be when three people are involved in some kind of toxic relationship drama. So maybe there's a girl, and she loves a man, she's dating him, but then maybe she starts liking another guy too, and she can't decide who she wants to be with. And they're both kind of mad at her, and they're mad at each other. Three people. It forms a triangle. And in this situation, whether it's, two men, one woman, or two women and one man, we call it a love triangle. Are you in a love triangle right now? It just means there's one person who can't decide who they're going to date and be with. And of course, if someone is in a relationship and, goes outside the relationship, whether it's, they have an emotional affair or a physical affair, it means they are cheating. If you are cheating on someone, it is very, very wrong. There are more formal ways to say someone is cheating. You can say they are not being faithful. You can say infidelity is happening, meaning there's a primary relationship, between a husband and wife. If someone commits infidelity, it means they try to, date and interact with other people romantically outside the relationship. So cheating and infidelity are very bad. They're, not good things to do in life. You should always be faithful and loyal in your relationships. Let's move on to one of my favorite topics we're talking about today, romantic gestures. Of course, one of the most innocent, sweet romantic gestures is holding hands. We often say when kids are little and they kind of, are in love, but they don't really understand what it means to be in a relationship or be committed to someone. They're just very young. We call this puppy love, meaning they love each other now, but they probably won't always love each other forever. So maybe they'll hold hands if they have puppy love. If someone is trying to express that they're interested in dating someone or being romantic with them, and they laugh a lot and joke around, so maybe they tease the other person just to kind of interact with them, we call this flirting. So to flirt with someone just means to interact with them, try to get their attention, or, be nice to them romantically. We talked about getting married, getting engaged, being fiancés. But when someone is about to ask the other person to marry them, we have a phrase that means this. We say they're going to pop the question. Do you think he's going to pop the question to her? It means ask her if she wants to marry him. The question being, will you marry me? So when we say pop the question, we mean are they going to propose or try to get engaged, when one person really tries to impress the other person, really make them fall in love. They do really romantic things. Like maybe they buy them gifts, take them out to nice restaurants, and just tell them nice things, like you're with, unclear word, beautiful. We have an idiom that means they're trying to, get them really interested and fall in love with them. They try to sweep them off their feet. So often in movies, the main character gets swept off their feet, meaning they fall in love very quickly with the other character who is being very kind and romantic towards them. One idiom I always love quizzing non-native speakers on is what does it mean to tie the knot? In English, it means to finally get married. So when did you guys tie the knot? It means when did you actually get married? So tie the knot means the same thing as to get married or even just to have a wedding. We're going to tie the knot next summer. And another way we playfully refer to weddings is the day you say I do. And when we say wedding vows in English, especially in the United States, we ask the person, do you vow to, love him, her forever? Do you vow to do this? That? And the person has to say, I do. That's the most common way to agree to the marriage during a very formal wedding ceremony in the United States, I do. There are so many terms of endearment in every language. These are just little names, little cute nicknames you call your partner. So let's go over a few in English. Promise not to laugh. Some people say these names, whether they seem silly or, very serious. I just want to make sure you guys know all of these and know that people actually use them, even though some of them seem a little ridiculous. Okay, so we can, of course, start with darling, honey, sugar, always sweet names. We can even say sweetie, babe, baby. Sometimes we even just say, this is my love right here. My love. Can you come here? These are all very common terms of endearment. Some that seem a little funny, but people actually say them, are snookums might be your gums or Pookie. There's a really common couple on social media that calls each other Pookie. And, it's like cute, but it's kind of weird at the same time. I'm sure you have names like this in your language too. It just sounds silly, but people actually call each other these things when they're very much in love. Let's talk about physical affection in your relationships. We're going to keep it PG today, parental guidance suggested, because, I don't want this video to be just for adults. It can be for everyone, so first, let's talk about a hug. Of course, you know what a hug is. It's an embrace. You just wrap your arms around someone. We often talk about cuddling or snuggling with someone we love. Of course, you can cuddle or snuggle with a baby, or even just a friend. It just means you're kind of warmly sitting next to them. Maybe you're watching a movie or just hanging out on the couch, just being near each other. You're cuddling or snuggling. Did you know? In English, we either say people are kissing, or they're French kissing. So a kiss would mean just a simple kiss. A French kiss is a little bit more passionate, a little bit more adult and mature, and sometimes in English. In the United States, at least, we call this making out. I remember watching the Harry Potter movies. The British English speakers always said snogging, which sounds disgusting. A quick kiss, peck, you might give a friend, or your mom, or just a baby would be a peck. We call it a peck. Give them a peck. Or just, kind of a playful kiss would be a smooch. A smooch is what we call, a kiss between two people when they're just kind of playfully kissing. It's not super romantic. If two people are smooching, Let's end this fun lesson today with some idioms about love. Do you have someone in your life you would describe as the one that got away? We call someone the one that got away when it's someone we loved. And maybe the relationship didn't work out for some reason. And we say, you know, if things had worked out or it was the right time, we probably would be in love right now, married, have kids, whatever it is, if they were the one that got away. And sometimes we use this very seriously, and sometimes we say it in a more joking manner, like, oh, my boyfriend when I was 5 years old, the one that got away. Some people are very emotional, and they let people know exactly how they're feeling. And for this type of person, we say they wear their heart on their sleeve, so this can be quite a positive way to describe someone. It means, you know, they're very passionate, and they show people how they feel. And they very easily show people that they love them. They wear their heart on their sleeve. A whole dating show is dedicated to this idiom. The phrase is love is blind. This means when one person loves another person, they might just love them so much that they can't see the flaws in the person's character. They can't see the things that are wrong with them because they just love them so much. It describes the feeling of being able to see past people's flaws just because you love them. In the dating show Love is Blind, I believe two people start dating, and they can't see each other. So, you know, it's trying to decide if you love someone based totally on their personality rather than their looks. Hopefully, when two people get married, one of them doesn't get cold feet. When we say someone has cold feet before their wedding or marriage, it means they're having second thoughts about something. They're reconsidering if they want to spend the rest of their life with this person. Maybe they're just nervous about the commitment of getting married. So that's what we mean when we say someone has cold feet. It means they might be nervous about getting married. Often people date a lot in the United States in their 20s, but it's important for them to settle down by the time they're 30. This means it's important for them to find a partner they're going to commit to a relationship with and someone they can see themselves marrying and having children with. Not being so, you know, in the dating and party lifestyle, and things settle down, they try to live that simple family life. And when two people are in a relationship, and one person either cheats or just breaks up with them out of nowhere, it means they have broken the other person's heart. Hopefully, you've never experienced having your heart broken, but it's just a common idiom. We used to say when someone is devastated at the end of a relationship, let's go over some general weather terms and idioms, and then we'll get more and more advanced as the lesson progresses. Do you know the difference between talking about the weather forecast and the weather climate? The forecast is usually how we describe the weather for the next day or the next week, whereas the climate is what the weather is typically like in a location. The climate is studied over many, many years, and the season kind of doesn't matter. Maybe for the climate, they'll say they have cold winters and warm summers, but for the forecast, it's very specific. It says Monday it will rain, Tuesday it will be sunny, whatever it is. When we use the phrase temperature, we measure in Fahrenheit degrees in the United States. Honestly, when someone tells me the temperature in Celsius, I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm sure you feel the same way if you use Celsius and someone says Fahrenheit. But for the United States, we talk about the temperature, the degree of heat or cold, in Fahrenheit. Humidity refers to the amount of moisture in the air. So we can talk about a place being very humid or very dry. A desert would be dry, whereas a jungle is humid. If you watch the weather forecast on TV in the United States, the weather news, they talk a lot about cool fronts and warm fronts. They're basically talking about the atmosphere, how the air is moving. So if they say a cool front is coming, it's that cool air that's going to be in your area or in your state if you live in the United States, and the same is true for warm fronts. Do you know what dew is? Well, if you watch the weather forecast, they'll have the dew point or the temperature at which dew forms. Dew is what we call the water droplets you see in the morning on different surfaces outside. It's water from the air that collects on surfaces that kind of condenses. We call this dew. So if it's very humid outside in the morning, we might say it's very dewy outside. That's another word we use to describe the weather conditions when things are kind of wet in the morning, but it hasn't rained. It's the dew that forms on surfaces. We often use the term dewy as well. When women want to achieve a kind of makeup look where their face looks a little shiny, we might say, "You look very dewy." Where I live, we have extremely cold winters, so in the winter, I like to pay attention to what the wind chill temperature is. So typically, there will be a temperature when I open my phone and look at the weather app. Let's say it's 30 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's below freezing. Now, sometimes below that temperature, it will list the wind chill temperature, and it will say it actually feels like 18 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind is so strong that it actually makes the temperature feel colder than the thermometer measures. We call this the wind chill. If you're ever in a scientific situation, you'll need to know the word precipitation. This means any kind of moisture that falls from the sky. So rain, sleet, snow, hail are all called precipitation. When we talk about visibility, we talk about how far you can see outside on a certain day. So often, if there's fog in the air, that's that kind of steamy moisture in the air, and it also looks like there are clouds on the ground. That's what we call fog. But if we say there's low visibility, it means it's unsafe to drive because you can't see very far, or if we say there's good visibility, it means it's a very clear day. And you can see from far away, many miles. Two informal terms you need to know for talking about weather in English are iffy and dicey. So if we say the weather today is kind of iffy, it means we can't really tell if it's going to storm, rain, or be nice outside. Even if we look at the forecast, it might say there's a 50% chance of rain, which doesn't tell us much. It tells us it either will rain or it won't where we are. Maybe you're talking to your friend, and your friend asks you, "Would you like to meet at the park on Saturday?" You might say, "The weather looks iffy, so maybe we should plan to meet indoors." It means you don't know what the weather will be like, so you won't plan to meet because it might not be nice outside. Now, when you say the weather is dicey, it means the same thing as if any situation is dicey. It means it's kind of uncertain and risky. So maybe there's a storm coming, maybe you live in an area where there are snowstorms. And the storm might get really bad, and it might be unsafe to travel. So you'll say, "I don't really want to go anywhere today because the weather is dicey." It just means dangerous and unpredictable. We can describe any storm and having to travel in it or go outside in it as a dicey situation. It just means risky. Let's move on to some other terms for talking about sunny or hot weather. It's very basic to say, "It's hot out, it's sunny out." Let's talk about some other ways to describe that kind of weather. If you want to level up from just saying "it's sunny outside," if it's very humid, you can use the word muggy. It's very muggy outside. It might be uncomfortably warm and humid. And everything feels very damp. Maybe you start instantly sweating when you go outside. We call this muggy weather in English, and it's definitely a negative way to describe the humidity. It's muggy out today. Again, if you need another term to describe this sticky weather, we can use that term sticky. Sticky just means it's very humid, and it makes you sweat almost instantly outside. If you watch the weather forecast in the United States, you might hear the weather reporter say there's a heat wave coming. So this is warm air that's going to surround your area for some time. Usually, heat waves last about a week maximum, and it will be weather in the 100 degrees Fahrenheit range for that extended period of time. We're currently in a heat wave is how you could describe feeling that. There are so many ways to say it's extremely hot outside. You can use boiling, baking, sizzling. Of course, these terms are all kind of cooking terms you might use to describe heat, but you can also use these terms to talk about really hot weather. If you want to be very dramatic about how hot it is outside, maybe you step outside, and it feels like the ground you're walking on could burn you. You might say, "It is blistering outside," or you could say, "It's blistering heat outside." It means it's so hot it feels like it will blister your skin. You can also say, "It's scorching," "It's blazing," or "It's searing." These are all good terms to describe extremely hot weather. So now you have tons of different ways to describe when it's extremely hot outside. And of course, if you wanted to say there are no clouds in the sky, you could say, "It's a very clear day out." Typically we say clear when the weather is nice, warm, but not blistering. Blazing, or too hot, it's just a nice, clear day. The great news is you now know tons of terms to describe hot weather, and I'm going to teach you just as many to describe cool or cold weather. The most common word we use when it's very cold outside is we just say, "It's freezing outside," and it doesn't have to be literally freezing temperatures, but we just say this when we feel very cold. If you live in the United States, you might experience the transition of summer into fall, and then into winter, where you have hot weather for a long time, and then suddenly the weather turns cold. It feels even colder than it actually is. It's freezing outside. If you want to say it's a little bit cold or chilly, a little uncomfortable, you could say, "Ooh, it's nippy outside," especially in the mornings in the fall and winter. We say, "It is nippy out today." It means it's just cold or chilly in the morning, but not extremely cold. When we experience frost on the ground outside, that's that white icy substance that gathers on the grass and the trees and the rooftops. We say there's frost outside. We say it's frosty outside. It just means there's a little bit of ice. It's definitely not snow, and usually, it's only in the morning if it's frosty outside. If you've ever heard of frostbite, this is an injury you get from being out in the cold too long. If it's extremely cold where you are in the United States, and you're outside without gloves, you risk getting frostbite on your fingers, and this can be very dangerous. People even lose fingers from frostbite, so be careful if the temperature is below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. We call this sub-zero temperatures. In the coldest parts of the United States, it's quite common in the winter to have sub-zero temperatures, and where I live, sometimes we get this weather they call an Arctic blast. I think this term is a little bit newer, and I don't know if it's necessarily scientific, but it just means that the cold air from the north, from the Arctic, has come down to where we are, making the weather extremely cold and frigid. It's just the coldest air you can imagine in the winter. We call it an Arctic blast. If it's not quite that cold outside, you'll hear us say, "It's a little chilly out today." It just means it's slightly uncomfortable. You might need a sweater or a light jacket. Chilly. Brisk and crisp are used similarly in English, when we want to say, "It's kind of refreshingly cool outside, especially if it's been hot for a long time." And then you go outside in the morning, and it starts to get, cooler air. It's kind of nice to have cooler air. You say, "Oh, it's so brisk outside or very crisp outside." This morning just means cool air but also refreshing and not so cold that you feel freezing. And finally, we say windy to describe weather with strong winds. But we can also say breezy. It's breezy out today. Breezy is usually used as a positive term to describe a nice breeze or wind outside. Now let me teach you how to describe rainy or wet weather, a light rain with fine droplets. The kind of rain you can walk outside in, and you'll get a little wet, but not totally soaked. We call this a drizzle, a light drizzle, and we use the word drizzle in the kitchen. When we talk about putting a little bit of sauce over, maybe a pastry, or we're drizzling a piece of meat with sauce, it means we just lightly put the sauce in a line across something in the kitchen. So you can use drizzle to describe that light rain. Or you can use it in the kitchen as well. We talk about rain as a shower. We use the term shower when it's just a short period of time. So if it rains all day, we wouldn't say, "Oh, we had a rain shower today." It would just be a rainy day in general. Now, if you're outside, and suddenly out of nowhere, or it's sunny outside, but then also rain clouds come in, and it rains for about half an hour, you could say, "Oh, we just had a shower this afternoon outside," so people wouldn't think you took a shower. They would understand in English it just meant a short period of rain, and often I hear weather reporters call these sudden showers pop-up showers, meaning they pop up out of nowhere. Even if the weather says it's going to be nice, these are showers or rain for a very short period of time. Now, when you're outside, and it starts raining very heavily on you, you could say, "It's raining cats and dogs." This is a very old idiom, and we don't actually use it often. We usually just say, "It is a complete downpour" or "It's a downpour outside." This is the most common way in American English. I know there are tons of different idioms out there, but I think many idioms describing rain are outdated or not used as often as they're taught, but I would just say, "It's a downpour outside," if it's raining very heavily, and then if you want to take it up one notch, it's even more rain. You might say, "It's a torrential downpour." This is a term describing the most extreme amount of rain. If you want to say you got caught in the rain, and all your clothes and hair are wet, you could say, we got drenched outside. So to get drenched means to get caught in very heavy rain. Or if, you jumped in a pool and got out of the pool with your clothes on, you could say, my clothes are drenched. Or if your house flooded, you could say, everything is wet. Everything is completely drenched. In my house, it means very wet. Everything is soaked with water. If you want to say it's cloudy outside, you're not talking about rain, but there's no sun. You can say, it is overcast today. A bit of a gloomy day. Very overcast. It means clouds cover the sky where you are. When we want to talk about rain that kind of creates a fog, it's like that cloudy feeling in the air. You might say, it's really just misting outside. This is the lightest amount of rain. It just makes it hard to see. Again, we go back to that term low visibility. Misty, misting, foggy. These are all very similar terms. If we're talking about rain, we should definitely use the word accumulate. So accumulate is an advanced English word you can use in other contexts besides weather. But it just means something gathers or builds up. So if there's water on the ground, you could say, the water is accumulating, there's water everywhere. Or often, if snow doesn't melt when it falls, it starts to build up. We can say, the snow is accumulating, it means it's actually building up on the ground. And when there are small pools of water everywhere, we call these puddles. The term is puddle. There are puddles everywhere. The puddles are very deep. If it's raining hard, you don't want to step in a puddle. And of course, if the water is unmanageable outside, and it accumulates a lot, it feels like there's suddenly a river, we might call this a flood. Or if you're in a mountainous area. Sometimes there are flash floods, meaning it's very dry. Unclear, and water comes out of nowhere, and this can be a very dangerous situation if there's a flash flood. So if you ever see a flash flooding warning, make sure you get to higher ground or get somewhere safe and never drive through a flash flood because the water can be very deep and dangerous. Let's talk about how you can describe stormy or windy weather. We use the term thunderstorm to describe a storm that has thunder, that very loud noise made by the clouds, lightning or lightning strikes, and really strong winds. That's what we call a thunderstorm. Sometimes you'll see on your weather forecast there's a thunderstorm warning. It means there's going to be a thunderstorm. They're warning you. If there's a thunderstorm watch, it means there might be a thunderstorm. There's the type of weather that typically causes it, but they don't see it yet, so that's the difference. If you look at your weather forecast, and it has a thunderstorm warning, that means very dangerous, or a watch. It means just be careful, it's not certain yet. The same is true if you're ever in the United States, and you see a tornado warning or a tornado watch, you need to be careful. If it says tornado warning, that's when you need to take cover and take some precautions before the storm. We can use the term gusting to describe winds that are very strong. We often say wind gusts. We might say 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And those would be really strong winds. And if you're ever in a really strong storm, they can be even stronger than that. For example, if you're in a hurricane, this is a tropical storm that starts in the ocean. And then usually hurricanes make landfall. So that means when it starts affecting people who live on coastal areas or near the ocean. They have gusting winds, and they have gusting winds up to 100 miles per hour, which can be so dangerous and so damaging. So if you live in the United States, especially if you live in Florida or anywhere on the East Coast, you'll often experience hurricane weather. Well, we talk about a spinning weather pattern. It's like a hurricane or a tornado. We might call that weather a cyclone. So anything that spins in the weather, we call it a cyclone. And again, if you've never experienced one, a tornado is when there's violent rotating weather. You'll almost see a funnel cloud type of weather in a tornado. You've probably seen videos of this online. If you don't have tornadoes where you live, finally, we talk about a gust, meaning the wind coming, a gust of wind. Or we might say it's gusting right now, or we have hail, which means little ice balls are falling from the sky. And sometimes, hail can be very large. It can be the size of golf balls outside. Thank you for learning advanced weather vocabulary with me. If you want to learn more vocabulary like this, check out the next 2 videos on the screen that I posted for you, and they will help you advance your English and sound more like a fluent English speaker. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.